Hey coin collectors, it's DC on the Big D, and this is a new one for the Big D coin channel, and that is the United States half dime coin. First came out in this version first came out in 1860, and they stopped making them in 1873. They've actually had half dimes for well before then. The first half dime in the United States came out in 1794. It was the flowing hair half dime. Those started about $1,500, which is why I don't have it. Then they went to the drape bust half dime. And then they went to the drape bust flanked by stars, then the Liberty Cap half dime, then the seated Liberty half dime, of which this is one. And if we turn it over, we will see that seated Liberty. And there she is right there. Liberty seated. When you want to look at these coins, one of the major things you always need to have is at least some of the Liberty. But if you have all the Liberty, it's really, really, really good. So this may be a good 4 to a very good 8, which would get it in 1872. We look it up and we'll see that somewhere around $20 to maybe a little under $30. You see there's a shield there in back of the Liberty, the U.S. shield. It's Liberty is seated and holding a flag or a banner up here. And if we see this side, it says United States, this side of America, this down here 1872, and it's a kind of a geared outer rim. It has 0.0359 ounces of silver. So this is worth probably a little bit less than a dime, maybe $1 plus of silver. When we get to the back, we see that it's kind of a nice back on here. It's a wreath with a bow on it. See the bow down here? Right there. In some vegetation, we see some corn and some other vegetables, and all this vegetation kind of flowing around, kind of a cornucopia kind of style wreath that goes around the back of it. Again, in 1872, that they had started making these particular ones in 1860. In 1872, they made them in a couple different versions. At the Philadelphia Mint, which means no mint mark, they made in 1872 almost 3 million of these. At the San Francisco Mint mark, with a mint mark in the wreath, which would be up here, they made about 837,000. Those are worth the same. And then they also made the mint mark below the wreath, and that's also about the same value. Until you get up to really good versions of the coins, the mint mark above or below the wreath does not seem to make a huge difference, simply because they have plenty of them out there. I guess that's how I'd put it. Now, if you're looking for one of these, you want to look for the 1870. The 1870 has one that people like them because there's one 1870S that sold for $253,000, a brilliant uncirculated. Now, the regular, they only know of one of those. But the 1870, a lot of people collect them and pay a little bit more for them, even though they're not highly valuable until you get up to MS 65 or Proof 65, at which you get to $800 to $900. The half dime, of course, is worth a nickel, and after this half dime came the Barber Nickel, and here's the Barber Nickel here. When you look at the Barber Nickel or the Liberty Nickel, Charles Barber was the engraver. That's why they sometimes call it the Barber Nickel. This one is a little bit worn. It's a copper nickel blend, and they made these from 1883 until 1912. There's 5 1913s known, but you're probably not going to find one of those, and it's hard to even get a value on them. Somewhere around 3 to 5 million on the 1913 S's, of which there are only 5 known. The 1904, on the other hand, they made 21.4 million. This isn't even a good 4, but a good 4 would only be worth $2. We see kind of in the back, sometimes they call these the V or the Victory nickels, which we don't usually use that appellation, but they do definitely do that in Canada for the ones that they made. United States of America, it says, in Canada they made them after World War II. They put the V in for victory, but V also stands for 5 in Roman numerals, and so this is a V nickel with these cents underneath. That's how they label this one. So after the half dime came the V nickel, and then came the buffalo nickel with the Indian head composite of a number of Indian chiefs on the front. The Indian head nickel first came out in 1913, and this one here is a 1935. A lot of times on Indian heads you can't find the date. The 1935 nickel, Indian head nickel, they made 58 million of them, so this is probably worth $1 to $1.25 because you can see the Liberty, but that's about all you're going to go for on this one. United States of America, 5 cents. After the Liberty nickel, of course, we came out with the, there's the 1938, the first year they made the Jefferson nickel. They made the Jefferson nickel. They still make it today, so they made it from 1938 to the present. They changed it a couple times. They changed it in the 1940s. From 1942 to 1945, they had the over the dome, and these were a 40% silver nickel. And they came out for a few years. And then finally, we moved on to the modern nickels. Some of them have different images on them. And of course, this is the Oceans in View. Oh, what a joy. All right, well, that's all we have today from Big D Coins. Please subscribe to our channel.